Perry Como was forever branded the nicest man on television, and in 1957 a 14-second live moment seemed to prove it, but the real story was more complicated. He often called his biggest hits crap, turned down trophies for selling millions, startled friends with bursts of road rage, watched his children fight in court while he was dying. And that famous pool jump wasn't just gentlemanly grace, it was control in a world where he rarely had any. Born May 18, 1912, in the small town of Canonsburg, about 20 minutes southwest of Pittsburgh, to Italian immigrants who arrived in 1910, Perry was the seventh of 13 children, with a father grinding long shifts at a tin plate factory for roughly $175 a month, while the family spoke only Italian at home, leaving him to learn English from scratch at 6. Faith and music anchored a household that otherwise lived on scarcity. And at 10 in 1922, he took his first job at Steve Fragapane's barbershop for 50 cents a week, opening before school, sweeping after school, lighting the wood stove at dawn, then racing to class before returning to Polish mirrors, so small he stood on a wooden box to cut hair. By 13 in 1925, he had his own chair and the family needed every penny, yet music had already captured him. By 3, he was plinking melodies on a $3 used organ his father somehow bought on credit. Then guitar, trombone, and more, all learned by ear. As a teen, he once blew an entire week's wages in a dice game, locked himself in shame, and braced for fury, only to hear his father say, "You're allowed to make a mistake, just don't do worse than this," a mercy he never forgot. Still barbering, he played trombone with the Canonsburg Italian Band, led by Stan Vinton, father of Bobby Vinton, sang while cutting hair, and became the singing barber, pocketing an extra $20 or $30 in tips at wedding gigs. At 14 in 1926, he opened his own shop in a Greek cafe, earning $125 a week, over $2,000 a week in today's terms. So busy he hired 2 barbers while singing to the crowds. When his father, Pietro, developed a heart condition and couldn't work, Perry and his brothers became breadwinners, his barber income covering rent, food, and even music lessons for siblings, yet he kept singing. Inspired by Bing Crosby performing for groups like the Sons of Italy for $5 or $10 a night. In 1929, he met Roselle Boleen, often spelled Roselle Boleen. At 17, she was 16 after serenading her with More Than You Know, waited 4 years to ensure he could support a family, and married her on July 31st, 1933. He 21, she 20, beginning a union that lasted 65 years. Right after the wedding, he faced a wrenching choice. Band leader Freddie Carlone, often rendered Freddie Carlo, spotted him in Cleveland and offered $28 a week, an enormous drop from $125. So he said no, then no again, until Roselle pleaded, "You'll regret it forever," and he shut the shop in August 1933 and joined the band. Less than 24 hours, he later said, from turning his singing life down for good. The start was brutal. $28 a week couldn't support them, and Roselle couldn't travel. Yet his father urged, "You'll never know if you don't try," a line that kept him going. In 1936, during a Decca recording date, a label executive snapped, "Get rid of that kid," saying Perry sounded too much like Bing Crosby, and Perry felt the words like a knife. But bandleader Ted Weems refused to record without him, loyalty that saved his job even as the Crosby copy stigma lingered, and Perry later admitted he was copying. When WGN threatened the band's broadcasts in 1936-1937 because his diction was muddy, Weems played back the tapes and told him to drop the tricks and sing from the heart, advice that shaped the smooth, effortless style that became his signature. The road took its toll. In 1940, during a live show, he walked off mid-performance to be at Roselle's side for the birth of their child, nearly getting fired and never regretting it. Family first. By 1942, he was exhausted. World War II had begun, Weems joined the Army, the orchestra dissolved, and Perry headed home to Canonsburg, even negotiating a new barbershop lease, ready to quit, until General Artists Corporation dangled $100 a week for his own radio show and a recording deal with RCA Victor. On March 12, 1943, he did his first solo CBS broadcast, RCA, hoping he could counter Sinatra and Crosby, 3 days after signing, he cut Goodbye Sue, a bare vocal disc, because of the 1942-1944 musicians' strike that failed and left him discouraged enough to eye the barber chair again. Then, on July 3, 1945, he recorded Till the End of Time, adapted from Chopin, released July 30th, charting by August 9th, staying 17 weeks and holding #1 for 10, his first million seller, ultimately over 2 million. And at the same time, If I Loved You crossed the million mark, making him the first pop singer with 2 songs selling over 2 million at once. The comfort in his voice fit a country grieving President Roosevelt's April passing. MGM signed him to a 7-year movie deal, and he appeared in films like Something for the Boys, 1944, and Dollface, 1945. But he loathed the studio culture. At Louis B. Mayer's, often misrendered Mayer, birthday party, he was told to sing Happy Birthday, felt like a trained monkey, and after finishing, looked Mayer in the eye and called him a piece, so effectively detonating his contract. He later admitted he engineered the exit. Hollywood was a cage. Even in music he bristled, griping that many assigned tunes were junk, cutting them in 1 or 2 takes with a sour face and leaving, yearning for Broadway and standards. In 1961, he tried By Request, filled with songs he loved. It sold modestly, while RCA Victor kept moving millions of the ditties he disliked. From 1943 on, they averaged 4 million Como records a year, and in 1946 shipped 4 million in a single week. By 1998, he shrugged. Those songs paid for my house and put my kids through college. Though he'd rather have spent a career on the Great American Songbook than crooning about hot diggity dogs, radio became home base. On December 11, 1944, he launched the 15-minute Chesterfield Supper Club weeknights at 7 p.m., a show championed by Doug Storer, and on December 24, 1948, NBC wheeled cameras into the radio studio for a 3-Friday TV test that hit so big it kept going, becoming a regular by September 8, 1949. In 1950, he moved to CBS with The Perry Como Show, 3 15-minute episodes weekly, before expanding to an hour. By 1956-1957, it was NBC's only series in the Nielsen Top 10. He won 5 Emmys in a row, 1955-1959, plus a 1956 Christopher Award, and the program pioneered color. He and Jackie Gleason traded friendly ratings calls, and on March 14, 1958, Catch a Falling Star became the first RIAA-certified gold record, though he didn't like it. The announcer even flubbed it as Chase a Falling Star, and Perry cheekily lampooned the song on air that same night. He later won a Grammy and still didn't change his mind. NBC dangled a 12-year contract in 1955, and in 1959 Kraft Foods offered $25 million for 66-hour-long color shows over 2 years, plus a 10-year spokesperson deal. He formed a rom-com for Sun Ronnie, assumed production costs, kept the overage, and became the highest-paid man on TV, yet told Time, "Frankly, I don't know a thing about the deal, but I met the president of Kraft, and he seemed a hell of a nice guy." A line that betrayed how boxed in he felt. His shows aired in more than a dozen countries. He won a 1956 Peabody with Gleason for understated charm and family friendliness, and he nixed scripts he thought unfit for children. On March 16, 1957, during a live episode, Olympic swimmer Esther Williams suffered a wardrobe malfunction in a special pool, and Perry ended the show with, "Good night, folks," then jumped in fully clothed, a 14-second flash that became legend. But behind the grin was a man asserting control over chaos. 1963, he ended the weekly series to be with his family, shifting to monthly, sometimes skipped, specials, and in 1980 recorded his Christmas show in Jerusalem, singing Ave Maria outside a real church because he refused to sing it anywhere that didn't feel sacred. In 1970, It's Impossible roared back into the top 10. He built an album around it, even covered the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel. And that same year, he returned to live performing after a hiatus since 1944, earning $125,000 a week at the International Hotel, more than his father made in a lifetime, recording a live album and delivering a clean Vegas show. Through the 1980s, he turned down big money to stay home, saying fame had stolen his children's childhoods and he wouldn't repeat the mistake. He collected a 1987 Kennedy Center honor and entered the 1990 Television Hall of Fame. While 1958's Magic Moments, the B-side to Catch a Falling Star, spent 8 weeks at #1 in the UK, peaking at 4 in the US, a transatlantic quirk that mirrored his odd love-hate with his catalog. He refused to certify many million sellers, he had 10 plus, and RCA once moved 4 million discs in a week, while he shrugged at the numbers. At home he lived simply in Jupiter Inlet Beach Colony, Florida, despite earning an estimated $40 million, selling 50 million records, winning 5 Emmys, and holding 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Radio, TV, music. He married Roselle on July 31st, 1933, 21, she 19, after meeting by Chartier's Creek in 1929, when he sang More Than You Know straight to her, 65 years of marriage, ending August 12, 1998, when she died at 84. Their first child, Ronnie, arrived in 1940. Unable to have more, they adopted daughter Terry and son David. He carried guilt, admitting the road isn't a place to raise children, and he stopped taking the family on tour after early trips. Money bought comfort, but time vanished. Off-camera, he wasn't always serene. Music director Mitchell Ayres, with him 1948-1963, said Perry could flash a temper, and behind the wheel he swore at cutters, a shock to fans who assumed permanent calm. Still, he never forgot his roots as the 7th of 12 noted in some accounts, and 7th of 13 in others, quietly sending money home for decades. In 1952, he and Roselle were invested as Knight and Lady Commanders of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Visited Pope Pius XIII in 1958 for their 25th anniversary, and he disliked the Vatican publicity. Faith should be lived, not displayed. He died May 12, 2001, at 88, sitting in his favorite chair. The day before, daughter Terry said they shared ice cream, and he smiled, which made the shock sharper. He'd battled Alzheimer's for about 2 years, and after giving up golf seemed to fade. Rumors of retirement swirled in the 1970s, yet in 1992, at 80, he said he still enjoyed performing. I wouldn't do it if I was tired. And after his death, the 2002 Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award placed him with Al Green, Count Basie, and Joni Mitchell. He recorded for RCA Victor from 1943-1987, 44 years, one of the longest artist label runs. Behind the velvet tone lived resentment. He felt RCA forced him into trash tunes, called the 1959 $25 million Kraft Pact a golden cage, and told friends he'd have preferred a Canonsburg barbershop. He even torched Hollywood prospects in 1948, filming Words and Music, rewriting Happy Birthday for Louis B. Mayer as Happy Birthday to You, you big fatso, after which Mayer blackballed him. Perry's verdict: they were wasting my time and I was wasting theirs. He ducked gold records, and RCA had to push him to accept the 1958 inaugural RIAA Award for Catch a Falling Star. Total sales topped 100 million with at least 15 million sellers. But he wanted to go home, not to awards banquets. Some accused him of dodging the World War II draft, but records show 4F, or similar, classification due to family obligations and musical commitments. Others, like Frank Sinatra and Harry James, had 4F too, and the criticism still stung. After his May 2001 passing, a painful legal rift surfaced. Daughter Terry and son Ronald clashed over his 1999 living will, Ronald named executor despite Parkinson's, Terry petitioning in July 2001 to remove him, tearing at the family. When the estate settled, figures startled outsiders. His Florida mansion sold in 2002 for $325 million, often misreported as $325 million, a property now worth over $17 million. He'd once signed a $1.22 million per year NBC contract in 1959. $10 million today. RCA couldn't even keep up with tallying sales, and he once told them to stop counting. He had more money than people realized. Never bragged, just kept singing. In 2002, that Lifetime Achievement honor placed him beside giants. He held 3 Walk of Fame stars, rare company, and singers from Michael Bublé to Bing Crosby credited him, the man who invented casual. After his death, the music quietly found new life. TikTok teens rediscovered the glide of his baritone. Holiday cuts like Home for the Holidays rejoined seasonal rotations with Elvis, and the studio where he taped TV later pulsed as Studio 54, proof of how showbiz shapeshifts. In 1961, he gentled a trembling 13-year-old Brenda Lee by deliberately flubbing lyrics on air, something he never did, just to steady her, which said more than any trophy could, and RCA capped it with a full-page Billboard salute. 50 years of music and a life well lived. Perry Como never chased headlines and never begged applause, but in the end, everyone noticed him anyway.